think back here, it's a wild world back in 2021. But the Houston Texans traded Deshaun Watson, sight unseen, right? What are we going to do at quarterback? The answer they had was, we don't know. Davis Mills for 2 years. But they traded one player, Deshaun Watson, who at the time had been accused by more than 20 different women of sexual misconduct of varying degrees, for a 2022 first-round pick, 2022 fourth-round pick, 2023 first-round pick, 2023 third-round pick, 2024 first-round pick, 2024 fourth-round pick. BJ, in total, that is 6 picks over 3 drafts, 3 first-rounders, 2 fourth-rounders, and 1 third-rounder.
Third-rounder, yep.
That turns into guys like Tank Dell. That turns into guys like you got traded, you got Cade Stover, Christian Harris, Damian Pierce, John Mechie III. All of these, okay, here it is right here. Directly or indirectly, the Houston Texans acquired Kenyon Green tackle, John Mechie III, Christian Harris, Thomas Booker, Damian Pierce, Will Anderson Jr., Kalen Bullock, Tank Dell, Kamari Lassiter, Jamal Hill, Cade Stover, and a 2025 second-round pick. All for Deshaun Watson.
Okay.
Who, since becoming a Cleveland Brown, has played horribly.
Yes.
He has had one good half.
Yes.
That half against the Ravens last season. And in that half, he ended up having to miss the remainder of the season because apparently if he had gotten hit on the shoulder one more time, his shoulder would have fallen apart. That was literally the reporting was there was nothing holding his shoulder in structure. Had he gotten hit, it would have been a wrap.
Yeah.
And then not only that, I'm not quite done yet.
Okay.
Because Deshaun Watson's contract, 5 years, $230 million.
Guaranteed.
Fully guaranteed. With a $45 million signing bonus to boot. This is, without a doubt, unquestionably, undisputed, the worst trade in NFL history. It is already the worst trade in NFL history. Because now,
really,
are the Houston Texans right now, 3 years later, not better than the Cleveland Browns?
Right now?
The Houston Texans are better than the Cleveland Browns are right now, in part because they got 6 picks back and did all types of things with them. Out of that list I named, one of them was Defensive Rookie of the Year. Kenyon Green's a starting offensive tackle. John Mechie, we'll see what he can do. He's looked great this preseason. Tank Dell had a great year. Tank Dell had a great year before he broke his leg and got shot. He's right back in preseason cooking.
Okay.
You know, the Cleveland Browns would like all those guys. All those guys.
I'm not sure.
And without it, they wouldn't have been able to draft C.J. Stroud. And not to mention that, the last thing is that Cleveland now had a team that was like on the verge. You know where they are now? 3 steps back. They're not the best team in the division. They're not, if you look at teams that are, just favored in terms of win-loss or over-under or whatever, they're coming in third to Baltimore and Cincinnati. Cleveland might not make the playoffs this year, and the only reason they even had a chance to made the playoffs last year was because they hadn't, not because of their fully guaranteed quarterback who they traded $1 million picks for. It's because of their defense. P.J. Walker started 4 games to them last year.
Yeah. I'll bite back a little bit on Houston being this better team because Nick Chubb's back this year. Amari Cooper is, in my opinion, a top 11, 12, maybe 10 receiver in the league. The topic is Deshaun, so I'll stick there. And what's happened with this is, I think the reason why I can't call this the worst trade in NFL history just yet because I'm old enough to remember the Dallas Cowboys, Minnesota Vikings, and Herschel Walker. And what that turned into was Emmitt Smith, Troy Aikman, Michael Irvin, Larry Allen, and a bunch of other players, I believe, too. Maybe Brock Marion might have been one of them also, too, but I know some defensive guys, too. But Jimmy Johnson pulled that move off and then went and won Super Bowls off that trade. That trade set Dallas up to win Super Bowls. Houston has won 1 playoff game since they've made that trade. Okay, so that's number one there. But with Deshaun, you talk about a guy's got a career record of 36 and 29. Not great, right? But the touchdown and interception ratio, because when he plays and when he's been healthy and when he's been focused and locked in, his last time out of a real season where before all of the allegations and all that stuff happened, 4,800 yards, 33 touchdowns, and he led the league in 3 categories that year. And career-wise, he's 118 touchdowns to 45 interceptions. So there's some things there I think that if he can show up and be healthy. Now, do I think he's done? I'm kind of leaning towards because football is just one of those sports. You can't miss a lot of time. You just can't roll out of bed and go play. You have to train all year long. You got to do OTAs. You got to do voluntary. You got to do involuntary. You got to go to the performance places and the performance academies and work with the quarterback guru and do the guru training. You have to do that in football year in and year out to maximize your talent and your ability that you've worked on and that God has given you. He has not been able to do that since he's gotten there. So I'm going to hold out a little bit on worst trade ever. Does it look good right now? No. But once again, I remember that Herschel Walker Dallas Cowboy trade, and that trade literally got Jimmy Johnson to take the Cowboys to Super Bowls and won Super Bowl rings.
Sure, but what it didn't do was tank the Minnesota Vikings. They went 6-10 the year after, and then I'm looking at it right now. They did not finish under 500 after that. That trade was October 12, 1989. They finished under 500 one time in that stretch, making the playoffs 7 times in that stretch.
So are you saying Cleveland? So are you saying Cleveland is tanked because of that trade? Because you say, well, Minnesota didn't tank, like going to the tank afterwards.
I'm saying Minnesota. 2 years after they traded for Herschel Walker, won the division.
Okay.
The second year, they were in the wild card. The next year after that, they won the division.
Okay.
Cleveland's not winning any division.
They're not going to win the division because they have Cincinnati and Baltimore there. Right. But they did go to the playoffs last year without Deshaun Watson. You feel what I'm saying? Like, that's a good football. Cleveland's got a good football team.
Which is why, if they didn't trade for Deshaun Watson and just did everything the same, even if they had just missed on all 6 draft picks, they'd be in a better spot.
You think that? Oh,
they wouldn't have. Think about the cap space.
They were just in the play. Martin, listen. They were just in the playoffs last year. Like, it isn't like they were 4-13 last year. They were just in the playoffs last year. They're going to field a very good football team this year on both sides of the football. They have one of the best defenders in football in Myles Garrett, who I think is probably going to be close to winning Defensive Player of the Year this year. He's going to have 15, 16 sacks. They have a great corner. I believe Denzel Ward. Am I saying that correctly?
Plays cornerback.
Yeah, one of those guys up in the school in Ohio. Chubb's going to be back. They have Amari Cooper. No, they have weapons there. It's all dependent upon what Deshaun's going to do when he comes back, because they can't MacGyver the quarterback position this year. They can't do that back-to-back years. It's got to be. You
know why they had to? Because the guy with the most guaranteed money in the NFL by what was that, $10 million? Yeah. Is absent.
No, I'm with you.
The guy with a 22% capital. You talk about how great the roster is that Cleveland has.
Yeah.
Well, imagine if they weren't spending just short of a quarter of their cap on Deshaun Watson. How much better would the roster be?
Okay, so if Deshaun comes back this year and they go 11-6, will you get?
If Deshaun comes back this year, they're not going 11-6.
Really? Where you got him?
They're not going to go 11-6 in the AFC North. They're just not. How many teams in the AFC are going to even win 11 games?
Well, I think Cincinnati and Baltimore both can win 11, 12 games. Absolutely.
The reason why Cleveland ain't winning no 11.
What was Cleveland last year, 11-6 or 10-7? They were right there last year. They won, were they 11-6? Ian checked. I think they were 11-6 or 10-7 last year, because at one point they were in first place in that division. At one point in the season last year, because we know what Pittsburgh was.
This is a team,
Cincinnati,
then.
Yeah, they were 11-6 last year.
So, again, think about it. They're 11-6. And their starting quarterback, who they pay $230 million to, did jack.
Okay.
So just imagine you take league average quarterback with league average salary, like war in baseball, right? Take the wins above replacement level quarterback and you put him in Cleveland, that team might win the Super Bowl. They scuttled all opportunity to that, signing Deshaun Watson. It's the worst trade that we've seen.
Like I said, I can't go with that because it can't be the worst trade we've seen. They went 11-6 last year.
Then it's the second worst trade that we've seen.
If he comes, listen.
So it's not Hurst. It's the second worst trade. Although I disagree because the Vikings didn't have. They had more success.
I'm gonna hold out on calling it that worst trade. I want to see what Deshaun does this year. I think this is his make it or break it year. I will say that this is Deshaun Watson's make it or break it year this year. He's got to come back and he's got to play top notch. Their over/under win total is 8.5. Where are you going?
Under.
So you're going? Oh, yeah, I'll take the over on that all day.
Under.
Yeah, I'll take the over on that all day. Yeah, I'll take it. They'll get the 10 wins. The Browns will get the 10 wins. If they don't.
So you're telling me that there's going to be a division with 3 teams with double-digit wins?
Yes. Why not? Wasn't that the case? Wasn't that the case? No, that's right. Pittsburgh was 9. Sorry.
Yeah,
and then of course Cincinnati had.
If you're going to play
last year, Pittsburgh had 10 wins.
Okay, my bad. So there you go. They had 3 because they had Baltimore, they had the Cleveland, and then they had Pittsburgh.
And the Bengals had 9 wins.
They'll do it again. There'll be 3 teams in that division with double-digit wins. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I ain't betting on it.
Yeah, I will. I'd put it on that again. I just think that roster's great, man. They have some really studded talent. It all depends. Now, I agree with everything people are saying about Deshaun Watson. In my opinion, this is a show me year right now for him. This is the year right now. You've been hurt the last 2 years. The one other year you was suspended. You had to sit out. It's now, brother. You have to show if he plays and plays. I would say 80% of the Deshaun Watson we've seen before.
Which one? Because 80% of the Deshaun Watson we've seen before is
the 2020 Deshaun Watson, the 4,800 yards, the 33 touchdowns. I know, but I'm saying
the last time we saw that, Josh Allen was throwing laterals behind his head.
Here's the thing: 80% of that. Would you agree that 80% of the 2020 Deshaun Watson would equal all the quarterbacks that they played last year? Would you at least 80% of that would equal what all those quarterbacks did last year, and that was in 11-16.
No, 80. First of all, 80% of that would have been better with all those quarterbacks attributed last year. It's just a chance that it's gone.
Joe Flacco was playing last year.
Yeah, Uncle Flax. Uncle Flacco. He ran out of magic.
But he was better than Deshaun.
That's my point.
Well, Deshaun, that's the thing. Deshaun has been, listen, the year off hurt him. It's because when he came back, he looked rusty as hell. You, as a quarterback, you've got to throw a football 12 months a year. You can't do it just between August and January. You have to throw a football 12 months a year. And you're sitting and you're hurt and then you're suspended. He has not had a lot of time. And I don't want this to sound like a Deshaun Watson defense because it's not. I want to see what happens this year because now you're supposed to be healthy. You're supposed to be ready to go. You get Chubb back. Okay, here we go now, buddy. This is your show me year. If he doesn't do it this year, I'll jump on the bandwagon that you guys are on. I'm like, all right, you're done. But he hasn't been healthy, so we haven't seen him healthy since 2020. Let's see him healthy. Let's see him with his pieces, and let's see what happens. The rest has got to be off now. You got to step in and perform. I'm not defending the guy, but I'll hold off just calling it, he's done. Now, he performs poorly this year. Like, say he's benched by week 7. Done.
How are you going to bench him? You're paying him $230 million over the next 3 years.
I don't think that'll matter.
How are you going to bench him?
I don't think
you would have to bench him because then you're paying $250 million to make your team actively worse.
In the NFL, you get benched. It doesn't matter how much money you make in the NFL.
This is what happens in the NFL.
You get benched if you're not playing.
Joe Flacco wins comeback player of the year. You know what they said in Cleveland? We got to get him off this roster because you know what's going to happen by week 3? Flacco. Hey, get this bum out of here. Put Joe in the game. That's all you hear from the dog pound. That's it.
He's also 54 years old. I mean,
No, but that's the point.
He's not,
Insert quarterback here. P.J. Walker. It would have been the same story. That's why they got all new backups in Cleveland. Because he plays so poorly in the regular season that by week 2 or 3, let the Browns start. I don't have the schedule off the top of my head. They may be let's say they're on the road for the first 2 games. Go 0-2. They come back in the first quarter of week 3. The first quarter, if they go 3 and out in the first quarter, you would hear PJ.
Ian, write this one down. This will be one of me and Martin's
you'll sit there
and
some guy from Cleveland, I can't do a Cleveland accent, but some guy from Cleveland will be like, you remember last year when P.J. Walker, he was one bad throw away from beating the Colts, 45 points we put up. Now we can't even move the ball with this guy, Deshaun Watson, as our quarterback.
Home against the Cowboys, at the Jags, home against the Giants, at the Raiders, at the Commanders, at the Eagles to start the year before going back home on October 20th for a game against the Bengals at home.
Watch
The division.
Let them go. Let them start the year 2-1. One of those Cowboys games. Let's say they lose to the Cowboys and the Giants.
I think they beat the Cowboys at home.
Woo.
And then you don't love the Jags. You don't love the Jags, so they're at the Jags. So they can start 2-0. If they start 2-0, the conversation is totally different. And then they're at the Raiders.
It depends on how you play.
I'm sorry, the Giants come in, and then they're at the Raiders. So 3 teams that you personally don't think are going to be good at all this year, they got the Cowboys at home, week 1. Give me the Browns. I'll take the Browns week 1 at home against the Cowboys. Straight up. And then they're beating the Jags. They'll go down there and beat the Jags. Nobody believes in the Jags. We're not going to start to act like people love the Jacksonville Jaguars right now. We know they don't.
So,
Giants, Raiders.
What I deem to be the worst trade in NFL history to what may be the second worst trade in NFL history.